Hey everybody, this is Heidi, and this tutorial is going to go a little bit more in depth with the pen tool and some of the associated tools that you can use in conjunction with it to really fine-tune your lines and paths in Illustrator. So the example here that I want to use to demonstrate is to add a little bit more body and dimension to the waist area of this dress where there might be some natural sort of wrinkling and give it a little bit more life. So I'm going to zoom in. And if I select this, I'll notice right away that there's only really a couple anchor points controlling all the curves and creating this path. You really don't need as many as sometimes people think you need. However, when you start to want to add some more dimension, you are going to need to add some more anchor points. So with that path selected, I'm just going to hit P on my keyboard to get the pen tool. And as I mouse over this, the icon next to my pen tool changes to a plus sign. As long as I'm mousing over a blank portion of the path. If I mouse over a section that's already got an anchor point, you'll notice it changes to a minus. That means I would be deleting that anchor point. But if I get a plus sign, it means I'm going to be adding an anchor point. So I'll add a couple anchor points. I'll then switch over to my direct selection tool, hotkey A, the white arrow, and I can grab these anchor points and start pushing them in and out to give my dress a little bit more dimension and body on the side here. Now if I want to adjust the curvature of these, I can use the direct selection tool to grab the handles. The downfall to this, in this specific example, is that as I manipulate this, it manipulates the handle, thus the curvature on either side. So you might be fighting with this sometimes, as I want to adjust this curve and not this one, but these two handles seem to be affecting each other. The way to get around that is using the anchor point tool. So that tool is hiding underneath the pen tool. Shift-C is the hotkey. So we'll grab that, and what that allows you to do is to grab an individual handle, and now I've still got a handle coming off the other side of this anchor point, but I now have the ability to manipulate these two handles independently. So I can select this, grab my anchor point tool, and I can manipulate the curvature independently, each handle on its own. Now the other thing that the convert anchor point does that is really handy is it allows you to remove just one individual handle. So you may know that with this tool you can click on an individual anchor point, and let's use one that's got pretty severe curvature so that we can really see what happens. So this anchor point here is now making a big curve right here, and I want to remove the curvature from that. So with my anchor point tool, I can click on that and it'll take the handles away, thus creating a sharp corner. I can also do it with my direct selection tool, select that anchor point, and up at the top on my tool or my control panel, I can convert that selected anchor point to a corner, and if I want to convert it back, I just click the one next to it to convert to smooth. I can then come back in and manipulate this. Now, if I only want to remove curvature from one side, I use my Convert Anchor Point tool. And instead of clicking on the exact anchor point, I click on the exact handle. So just as I can click and drag on that individual handle and manipulate that handle independently, I can also click and release, and it will remove the handle from that side but still leave the handle on the other side. So as you can see, you get really precise control over each little anchor point and handle in Illustrator to really give yourself the result that you want within your illustrations. The next thing I want to touch on really quickly is drawing some paths from scratch. So with the pen tool selected, I can click and drag, and if this is not something you've spent a lot of time with, then you might want some tricks here. So one thing I want to show is how to release yourself from the path. So as I click and drag and I click and drag, and I then want to start a new path over here and I click, I'm still connected to that path. So I can release from it a couple different ways. I can use the keyboard using the command key. The pen tool is still selected. I hold the command key and it'll automatically turn my cursor into either the direct selection or the selection arrow, whichever one I had previously used. It does not matter. All I want to do is hold command, click anywhere off of the path, release command, I'm back in the pen tool and I can start over. The other option is to use the return or enter key on your keyboard. So I just hit return. Now it doesn't look like anything happened, although it did. I hit return on my keyboard and I've now been deselected from that path. So from here, I could And we'll make it a little bit more curvy. Add a little bit more body to this section right here. And now I need to put this section into the body of the dress. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here with my direct selection tool and I'm going to click here. I'm going to grab my pen tool because there's not an anchor point currently where I want to cut this path. So grab my pen tool, I add an anchor point there, and I come down and I add an anchor point about here. Now, what I can do is using my direct selection tool, I can select those two anchor points. So I select the one up top, select the one at the bottom, and up on my control panel I can cut the path at selected anchor points. So I choose that, and I now have this piece cut out, and I've got this new piece that I want to put inside of it. So I'm going to grab this anchor point. I'm just going to line it up a little bit closer. I'm going to select those two anchor points with my direct selection tool, and I'm going to choose Object, Path, Average. I want to average both the horizontal and the vertical axis, okay, and Object, Path, Join. Now you could have just joined those, but you would have ended up with two anchor points there. By averaging them and then joining them, you end up with only one single anchor point at that specific join. Now coming down here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take this anchor point and this anchor point, and I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut. I can use Shift Option Command J, it's kind of a handful, Shift Option Command J, and that will average and join all at once. Now I lost the fill on my body, I'll give that back. And it did change the stacking order of my illustration, so let me send everything to the back. So you can see you can go about this two different ways. You can either draw a new path and then merge it into the illustration, or add some anchor points and use the tools demonstrated, the anchor point tool specifically and the direct selection tool, to manipulate your handles and anchor points individually. Thanks for watching. This is So Heidi.